Hey, what's good, guys? It's Andrew from GaragebandProfessional.com. Today I'm talking to you about audio interfaces. You can check out my article at GaragebandProfessional.com/audio interfaces GarageBand. In the article, I really do my best to really explain what an audio interface is, including all the specifications and its functions and what kind of things it can do and why it's nice to have one. I really did my best to try and explain it because I know that many of these terms and for example, bit depth and sample rate and all this stuff, input, output, all that stuff. I feel like it's kind of confusing. So I just really did my best to, explain it to you and hopefully it's helpful to you. But anyway, I made this video just for people who don't want to, read the article. But anyway, let's just get right into it. So an audio interface essentially it's a piece of equipment that through the conversion of analog to digital, it allows us to hook up all of our gear to our computer. And that's basically what it does. That's the exact terminology I use in my article. It's kind of like it's like a translator, you know what I mean? You have your guitar which speaks one language and then you have your computer which speaks another language. And the audio interface is essentially an interface between those two speakers of the languages, and then you're translating the guitar's language into a language that the computer can actually process and turn into music. And I feel like that's a really helpful way of explaining it. I hope it is for you anyway. But anyway, every computer comes with a sound card, and that's essentially what an audio interface is. It's a sound card, and every computer has a sound card, and that's what it's doing. It's kind of like turning all this digital information into music. So the sound card within a computer, for instance, that's what's allowing us to play the music through the computer, like iTunes and Spotify and YouTube and what have you. Like the computer has in it an audio interface already built inside, and it's translating that digital information, those little data packages, and it's translating it into real life sound. And that's essentially what the audio interface does. When you put it that way, it's a lot easier to understand. So I hope that's easy for you. But anyway, before moving on, I guess we should talk about like the differences between analog and versus digital. This is kind of a difficult concept to, to wrap your head around. But analog is kind of described as a continuous wave format that's recorded by some kind of electrical or mechanical equipment, so like a tape recorder. And then a digital recording is recordings that are kind of broken up into little data packages. So using the example of a tape recorder, you think about it, you hit record on the tape and this tape just goes around and around and around and it picks up, all the sound. Whereas a digital recording, it records something, but it kind of like, it breaks up everything into these little data packages at this micro level. And that's basically the difference between the two. Analog is a continuous wave format, and then digital is kind of like broken up into little chunks. At least that's what I think anyway. But anyway, some audio guy who's an expert in this stuff will probably eviscerate me over this, but whatever. So why should you get an audio interface? Well, you need it to hook up all your gear. You need it to hook up to play your vocals, to to have your bass guitar through your computer, to have your guitar. You kind of need one, and especially in today's day and age. And it's great for any kind of home studio. It's really essential for that kind of stuff. As I said before, every computer comes with a sound card in it. That's what's allowing you to play iTunes and stuff. But if you're looking to produce music, you're going to need a better sound card than what the computer comes with. So that's why you purchase the audio interface, So anyway, I'm not going to bother with reviewing these products as I did in the article. We'll just talk more. I'm just going to illustrate some of the concepts. So as I showed here, like you have these two jacks. You might wonder what they are. Essentially, these two ports right here, they're an XLR jack and a 1/4 input. And that just means that it's good for not only a regular guitar cable, but also a microphone cable. Like you'll notice that many mic cables, they have like this 3-prong cord, whereas a guitar cable is kind of just like one jack. It's a jack, literally. And let's move on. And also, I want to talk about the line and instrument level. This was a difficult concept to kind of illustrate. It's hard to explain. But I guess the instrument level is any kind of like, it's a signal where um, it's created by an instrument, essentially. It's usually a lower powered signal, but it's that when people say instrument level, they're usually referring to either a bass or an electrical guitar. The signal generated from a guitar is apparently it's lower than what's generated by a microphone. Um, and then you have the line level, which is it's the signal that flows through the recording system after it's passed through the preamp stage, but before the amplifier gives power to the speakers. Um, so I think the line level is more so for vocals and other things like that. And what else? And also the phantom power button that you see on your interface. The phantom power button, essentially what that's for is that it's giving you an alternative source of power so you can power your microphones. So for instance, some mics need phantom power and others don't. Like I forget which ones they are. A condenser microphone that needs phantom power, but a dynamic mic doesn't need power, and ribbon mics don't need power either. In fact, I'm not 100% sure, but from what I've read, ribbon mics can actually be hurt by the use of phantom power. And you also have your direct monitoring button, which allows you to listen to what you're playing with or not. On the latest audio interface from Scarlett, or excuse me, Focusrite, you can actually switch from mono and stereo. So that's kind of just like directing the channel through either, if it's in stereo, it's spread across left and right, and if it's mono, it's just one channel. What's another confusing thing? Also, you have these buttons here on the back, or excuse me, these holes in the back. These are the outputs. So these are typically meant for the speakers. So you can hook this bad boy up to speakers if you wanted, and that's obviously the right hole and then the left hole. Excuse me, right hole right here, left hole right here. So that's the right speaker and the left speaker. And this is also your USB port where you would plug in with your FireWire cable to your computer. Now, if you use a Mac, the latest edition of Mac, the MacBook Pro 2019 or whatever, you're going to need a USB to USB-C adapter. So that's something to keep in mind. And what's another thing that we can talk about here? I guess we could talk about bit depth a little bit. So bit depth, a lot of these concepts are pretty difficult. But a bit depth is it's the number of bits, or the number. It's like the pieces of information that are stored in each sample. So I'm going to show you this graph that I created right here. So yeah, you can see in my graph here, like each grid line is it's a very, by the way, it's not a great graph, but each grid line is kind of meant to illustrate a bit. And so like here's your digital recording. It's this red right here. And you notice how it's chopped up into squares. That's kind of meant to illustrate like a digital recording, because that's what's happening. It's like you have all this information that's recorded within each one of these bits. Whereas the blue line is an analog and it's just one continuous line. So using this graph to kind of illustrate the concept, if you have more bits, if you have more bits and you have more information recorded within each sample, so like what's going to happen is you're going to have it's going to be less choppy. Like the squares are going to be divided up even smaller. So if you think about it, if it's a wave, well, if it's a digital recording, it's been like chopped up into squares. Like if it's one continuous line, like this analog recording, it'll be chopped up into little squares, right? But the higher the digital the recording, the less chopped up that sound wave is into packages, from what I understand. So it's kind of like the higher the bit depth, it's like more information is being stored in each one. So because of that, the actual like sound wave is more smooth. You know what I mean? I hope that was helpful to you. I don't know. So yeah, let's move on to the sampling rate. So the sampling rate is the number of samples per unit of time. and it's usually measured in seconds. And it refers to the rate at which samples are taken of an analog sound and converted into a digital sound. So in other words, it's like a digital snapshot of the audio signal, and that's what the sample rate is. Let's move on to the next thing. And you know what? That's pretty much it. Like, I hope this was able to illustrate some of these confusing concepts. But you have like, this is where you put your guitar cable and your microphone cable. These jacks right here. That's obviously for your headphones. And then you have this switches from microphone to instrument level. This is the Phantom 48 voltage power button is for your mics. Obviously, your monitor is turning up like the total gain of the signal. Or excuse me, it's how loud it is. And then you have your gain, which is going to increase the preamp, so it's going to boost the signal so it's much louder. And it'll usually flash red if there's a problem with how much signal there is. And then you have your outputs on the back, which are meant for speakers, and then your USB right here, which connects to your computer. And that's kind of it, So I don't know. I hope this was helpful to you. I'm not really an expert in this stuff, as you can see, so I'm just kind of doing my best to explain what some of this stuff is and how you should go about using it. But yeah, anyway, I guess we'll call it in for today.